As an artist, it can be so hard to manage your week and not get distracted by all of the amazing ideas you have uh, every single day. I'm an artist. I absolutely know what it's like to have an idea pop up often every day that I just want to start working on. But the way you make true traction in your business is by having some level of focus, which allows you to make sure you follow through on a plan to not only create something amazing that comes from your heart, but to actually execute it in a way where you market and sell it, which is where a lot of artists fall down and where I used to fall down a lot when I was starting my business. So today I just wanted to give a bit of insight as to how I create like a business mind in association with my art. So yes, you have your creativity and you have your habits and your daily actions and things you do to be creative. But alongside that, we really need great habits and focus to make sure we get things done that really need to get done. So today I just want to take you through that process. I've got a little guide that I've created, a 6-page guide that takes you through this, and it's something you can take away and actually use yourself month to month to keep you on track with the big goals you're trying to achieve this year and how you bring it back to weekly and daily action. So, like I say, I've created a guide for you, and it kind of runs you through the way I see my time. And I look at this in a sense of what are my big goals for the year? And then I like to drill it back to my next quarter. So, what am I doing for the next 3 months? Because that makes it feel a little bit easier to tackle. And it also allows you to make room for the fact that at the beginning of the year, you might make some goals and they change a bit depending on what might come up for you. So I like working quarters, and then what I do from there is figure out what are the projects that have to be delivered or finished or aimed for in that quarter. So it might be you have an exhibition, it might be you're aiming to apply for something, so you need to finish painting. It could be a myriad of things. You have a calendar that you want to sell for Christmas, and therefore you've got to get done by October. So it could be so many different options or things that you're trying to achieve with art business. But I like to look at it in projects, and I like to make sure based on those big projects I plan over the year, it's reasonable. According to my life, I'm a mum, so I have a lot of time at home with my 2 young kids as well as my art business. So I have very limited time. I need to make sure I'm making the most of it, but also not being, I guess, too optimistic. So I break it down in projects, and then I look at the other things, the habits, things that just have to keep going every single week, both to help my business run. So that's just for me, marketing has to keep happening. I have to keep showing up on social media. I have to keep putting myself out there in some way. And then it's personal things such as going to the gym, trying to meditate every day, making sure your family fits in with us if you have a family or you might have a job. So there's the life stuff that happens, and we can form really nice habits around that directly feed into our big project goals that happen across the year. So those are the 2 blocks I focus on. What are the big things I'm trying to achieve? And I often have 3 things that are my priorities every year, and then there's a few other things around that. And then there's my daily habits. So the things that I'm trying to make sure happen every single day because they, help me achieve those big things. So that's the first step, thinking about what are my big goals, outlining those, and then actually starting to go, right, if we're looking at the next quarter, what are the goals? What are the things that have to happen for me to reach that goal? And how does it break down into actions that I can then start to plug into my week? So it's kind of like taking the big, scary, or the big elephant, take an elephant, you break it down in chunks. I don't actually hate that saying because I love elephants. But that's the whole point, trying to break down the big frightening thing that feels so overwhelming and breaking it down quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. So this is the first point. So I'm going to show you from there where I go with this because I've actually created something that you can fill in, and the visual, I think, as artists will really help you understand where I'm going with this process. So I'm going to jump across there now. Okay, so we're now in the document, and this is going to be made available for you for free. So if you go into the description, you will be able to find the link where you can jump in and grab this. So like I say, step 1 is knowing your 2 layers. So your project blocks and your weekly non-negotiable, your habits that help you get there. So those are the way I see my life in the sense of what I'm trying to achieve. And I've found that these are really kind of my guiding North Star, not only over the year, but just in the sense of being able to break it down day to day. So from there, if we're kind of looking at what you might do today to figure out, well, how do I plan my next week in association with this kind of mindset? So writing down I've put 3 goals here. So what are your big 3 goals that you wanting to achieve? And then from there, how do we zoom in and go, right, next 90 days? And that's why I referred to the next quarter, because I really like to work in a 3 month mental mindset. I feel like it's much easier than trying to go, oh gosh, what am I going to do in the next year? So next 90 days, how do those goals, so there's probably going to be one goal in the next 90 days that is pretty important that you focus on. And so that then translates to this month. Okay, so say you've got an exhibition in 90 days. We then actually go, right, in the next month, and this is what I mean by breaking it down to feel actually manageable for yourself. How do the milestones that I need to achieve to get to that exhibition in 90 days, what are they? So, for example, it might be you have a schedule of paintings that you want to have ready for that, three exhibition in 3 months, and 4 of those need to be done this month. So you write down those 4 paintings, and then that's when we start to break it down into the week. So week by week, if you've got 4 paintings over the month, you might say, that won't be this simple, of course, but you might say 1 painting per week. And so that kind of starts to set out your week to week plan. Now, obviously, like I say, it's never that simple, but you see what I mean in the sense of taking the really big ideas, the big goals, and just slowly pulling back the layers, right? And the next month, I need to achieve these things to be on track for that big goal. And therefore, if I look at the next 4 weeks, these are the things that make sense for me to focus on. So this is how you start to really just drill down into what's important. Now, I really want to highlight these non-negotiables in this document, and this is the habit stuff, the habits that really make everything happen. Because you might have a goal this year. For me, one of my goals is to be much more consistent and visible on social media. So one of my habits, it's not necessarily, it is a goal, but actually the way I'm going to achieve that goal is it becomes a daily habit. So it's something that I want to be completely normal, that I get something together to post most days, if not every day. So that's a habit I'm trying to create. Some other things here, list growth activities. So you might be wanting to grow your email list. So you might have 3 days a week. That is a habit. You want to put something in your social media content that refers people to your list. You want admin. So every week you might have, I like to have like a 20-minute window in my day where I think, and it's often, I kind of am starting to work this a little bit differently, where I give my kids afternoon tea when they get home. They're allowed 20 minutes of TV. And so before I start making dinner, I jump on my laptop and I do 20 minutes of admin. So it's kind of like, what emails do I need to check in on? What money stuff do I need to do? And it's a small block, but it's very focused and it's very clear of what I'm doing with that. Rest and time completely off. So you might structure that into your week. It might be 20 minutes in the morning before your kids get out of bed, or before you have to go to work. On the same line as that personal stuff, it might be 20 minutes to meditate. It might be gym 3 times a week, and that's part of your habits that you want to be happening all the time, every single week. Those habits are formed. They might not be every single day, but over a week, when you start to replicate that week to week to week, you feel that habit forming. So there's a number of examples I've put here. But I think if you haven't thought about your life in the sense of how you set goals and what you're doing in the sense of habits and the stuff that you do every day or every week or need to do every day or every week to make life easier, to achieve both your personal and your business art goals, I really recommend really focusing on this, because I think this is something that people miss in the sense of goal setting. Actually making my habit setting part of this process. This is life changing if you do this and commit to sticking with it. So I've just got some things here where you can just make a note of how some habits might fit into these areas, because I think in the sense of daily, weekly habits that sit outside of those big goals, these are kind of the key ones for me that I think are really important to consider. And then we plan your week. So it's kind of like breaking down. We've kind of got our weekly plan so far as how it's associated to our big goals, and we've now looked at the habits. And now it's kind of going, how do I get a weekly planner together based on that insight and based on that review that works with those key things I'm trying to achieve? So I've made a little planner here. You can use this every week if you like, if you find it useful, but it's Monday to Sunday and it highlights um, your life commitments, the non-negotiables that you have to be doing, and all your goal moving tasks. So this is kind of trying to break down your life into kind of three areas where you've got my life, might be family, it might be work, it might be walking the dog, and then you've got your non-negotiable habits, and then you've got your goal moving tasks, specifics to say get you to that exhibition. Now, a couple of things I've noted here, two key things I found when it comes to daily planning. Do not create any to-do list item that is longer than an hour. It will feel too big and you will be likely to avoid it. So anything that's more than an hour, break that down again. So if it's like, oh, paint for 4 hours, write that onto your to-do list of be in the studio for half an hour working on this painting. That often turns into 4 hours, but we want to make it feel mentally okay. I can do 20 minutes, half an hour in the studio, just maybe starting to prep or do base coats. And as we know, often when we get in the studio, even if we're not in the mood, this has been one of the biggest lessons for me in the past few years. I'm not in the space to do it. I'm not in the space to do it. Well, actually, I just need to get in there and start, and then it happens. And the other thing is do the hardest thing or the thing you're fearing or avoiding most, do that first every day. So if you have a task, it might be start your email list, or it might be figure out how to do a carousel. And you're like, I'm avoiding it because I don't know how to do it. And we all do this no matter how far along we are in the journey. Tackle the stuff you don't want to do first, because my gosh, your day will flow better after that. You'll get so much more done and you'll feel really, really good, because what that will do, it will break down a massive roadblock for you. Life changing. So here you go. You got Monday to Sunday. And then what I've also created here is a little habit tracker. I've created one of these in the past, which is like a one-pager, but I wanted to insert this here. And you can just kind of like highlight the key habit it might be. And again, it might be not be something that you're doing every day. It might be, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week, and here's the days I've planned. And then you can tick off whether you've achieved that. Or it might be, I'm going to post on social media every day, and you want to tick it off. But this is a really nice thing to have a visual every week of how you're tracking with this, because the small daily actions taken consistently will build the business and the life that you really want. This is where the change happens in your habits. I love that quote, and it's very much reflective of what I've found in my life so far. So I've also got a little weekly reflection here. So this is something you can do at the end of the week just to reflect, how did I do? What happened? Maybe you got sick and it all fell apart. We're not going to beat ourselves up. Maybe we did 90%. That's great. I feel like most of the time is a win. I heard somebody say recently, I think it was James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits, that if you have a plan to do something every day, missing one day is all right. But it's when you miss 2 in a row that becomes the problem, because you're setting a new habit of not doing it. So when you think of life like that and you give yourself a little bit of leniency, it feels more achievable and it feels more realistic. And you'll be way more inclined to just get into this knowing that we are all human, and it doesn't always work out perfectly into the way that, so far as the way that we plan. So this is, like I say, is a little bit about me here if you're new and you're watching this for the first time. I also have a business toolkit that I put together that goes through the goal setting, financial planning framework that I use in a lot more depth. If this is something you feel like you've not really gone through a goal setting process, then I highly recommend that. That will you'll find that really useful. So you'll be able to click on the link to check that out if you really like to get into this further. And you can do this process no matter what time of year. It doesn't need to be the 1st of January. You might have left your job like I did in 2021 in June, and you're like, right, what do I do now? And you'll goal set in June, and that's fine. So I hope this is useful for you. Like I say, this really is useful for anybody in any business. But I wanted to talk through it, obviously, in the space of me as an artist trying to help other artists apply this focus and time conscious way of thinking each week because, like I say, I find that most artists have small blocks of time to do things that kind of get put by the wayside. So going through processes like this really help you prioritize and really help you make things happen that otherwise won't. This doesn't actually consider anything around the actual creative process. I haven't gone in specifically around habits that you might have, but you can put this into that tracker, by the way. You might say in the morning, I want to do doodling for half an hour because it gets me in the mode. Put that in your habits. I really wanted to just focus more in a broad sense on the big goals. And the big goal you have might be to paint every day because I know that will create more work and then I'll move from there. And that's fantastic. That can be the goal that you work through. But like I say, in the sense of a business, we want to be looking at lots of things so far as not just the creation, but we want to be looking at how we're getting it seen and visible and then sold, which is really the key things that I really try and help and support artists like you with. So I hope you found this useful. Like I say, it's something I use in my life all the time. This process, I'm constantly thinking the 3 month pulling it back, 3 months pulling it back, and then that's how I work my week. And I have a very clear to-do list across my week that just creates so much clarity for myself. And when I'm following this clearly, I end the week feeling great. So give it a go. Let me know how you go with this. And I would love to hear if it helps you create more clarity and if it helps change the way you're moving that needle, because it's just 1 degree every day or every week. And that exponential change is so big. So enjoy. I hope you found it great and drop in the comments what you thought, as always. And maybe let me know if there's something you're going to implement specifically from this training that you might not have been doing before that may have been new. I'd love to know if there's anything that I've shared that is new that you're going to jump into straight away. All right, take care. See you soon.